to tell you a little bit more about my top 50 favorite horror movies. This time, clocking in at number 23. And I do realize as I look at my list that I cannot give these movies the attention they deserve and be able to film this entire series today. So it's going to have to spill over into November. I'm going to try to finish it up tomorrow. And I realize that that's messing around a little bit with Halloween season, that it's lapping over. But you know what? November the 1st is All Saints' Day. It's still Halloween season, and I'm going to make it work. So at number 23 is 1936's The Devil Doll, starring Lionel Barrymore as yet another one of these men wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. In this case, he was convicted of bank fraud, but he has escaped from prison and is now headed to wreak revenge. He is seeking justice. And along with him is another one of those scientists who has discovered the power to shrink human beings. His idea is that if we shrink human beings, then there will be no starvation or poverty because there'll be enough resources for everyone. If we're smaller, we won't need as much. But his wife, played by Raffaella Otiano, has other ideas. She's a megalomaniac. And when the scientist dies, she ends up taking over, and she and the Lionel Barrymore character go on this quest for revenge. He wants revenge. She basically wants to rule the world by making everybody small. And she gives a wild and wonderful performance, certainly one of the more interesting female villains that you find in 1930s horror cinema. And Lionel Barrymore, to disguise himself, pretends to be an elderly woman running a toy shop. And she's selling dolls that are in fact miniaturized human figures that Melita, the mad scientist's crazy wife, has shrunk. So, in this instance, it's one of those horror films, much like The Walking Dead of the same year, in which you are actually on the side of the person seeking revenge. You're with him. You see him work his mysterious supernatural will, and you're wanting him to succeed. And the men whom he targets have it coming in every single way. So it ends. The ending here is not quite as sad and tragic as what we see in The Walking Dead, but it is a melancholy ending as it thrusts home the idea that once you go for revenge, once you have your revenge, then there's no going back from that. You can't just pick up your old life. It's you're basically turned loose. Your moorings have been cut, and you're an outsider. In a more comic way to put it, Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, as he says, "I've been in the revenge business for so long, I don't know what to do with the rest of my life." And at the very end of the film, of course, the Lionel Barrymore figure has to figure out what to do now that he's basically lost everything. He's still alive, and he has been acquitted of the charges because one of his quote victims confessed, but now he has to deal with what he's done in order to get revenge. So track it down if you can. Well worth a look. Number 23, The Devil Doll. And at number 22, we're going back to the silent era for a Swedish film called The Phantom Carriage, starring Victor Sjöström as a man who dies on New Year's Eve at precisely midnight. And if you die at that hour, then supposedly your spirit is condemned to drive the carriage of death for the next year. And this is a redemption story. And it can be difficult to watch in places. There are times when you're like, I don't want this guy to be redeemed. He's crossed the line. There's no going back from that. But watch it, when you watch it all the way through, it is a very moving story. And Sjöström as the man is amazing in his performance. So give this one a look. This one, I believe, is on YouTube, so it is more immediately accessible than some of the other ones that I've been telling you about. Number 21, that spot goes to Targets, a 1968 film directed by Peter Bogdanovich and starring Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff essentially plays himself. He's an aging horror movie star whose agent and whose directors are trying to coax him out of retirement. They want to make another film. He doesn't want to make another film because he believes that the kind of horror that he represents is outdated and has no real place in the modern world where there are much more real and scarier things going on. And in juxtaposition to this is the plot of a young man who, for some reason, just decides to start killing people. We never really understand exactly why. And in the scenes that focus on this character, everything is very flat, everything is very bland and lifeless. There's no real energy, there's no real chemistry or charisma in anything that you see in this part of the film. But when you switch over to the Karloff plot, then suddenly there is warmth, there is energy, there is affection. And you're a lot more comfortable with Karloff and his friends than you are with this young man who snaps for some reason that the explanation is never really seen and just decides to become a serial killer. He knows he's going to eventually be killed himself, but he wants to kill as many people as he can before his time is done. Eventually, the two plots converge at a drive-in theater showing of one of the Karloff characters' last films. So, it features one of my favorite Karloff performances. Again, it's one of his more sympathetic performances. And just to listen to him play himself with that wonderful, soft baritone voice. There's a sequence in which he tells a short horror story, and you just want to hear him read the phone book after that. So, number 21, very disturbing, very timely, 1968's Targets. At number 20 is the film that put producer Val Lewton on the map as a main name in horror, and that is 1942's Cat People, in which you have a young woman played by Simone Simon who believes that if she experiences sexual intimacy, she will transform into a murderous big cat, which makes things kind of difficult when she falls in love. And when she decides to marry the man anyway, she ends up causing him a little bit of frustration because she's not willing to be as intimate as he would like to be. And when he starts to gravitate toward a female co-worker, she starts to get a little catty. And this is another instance where the ending is really very tragic. Your heart kind of breaks at the end. It gives you all the feels because Simone, even after she starts to give in to jealousy, she's still a very tragic and sympathetic figure. So this is one to check out ignore the remake. The remake did not understand what the 1942 original was trying to do, so it's best avoided. So at number 20, Cat People. Now I'm entering the top 20 with number 19, and we have Night of the Demon, or as it's known in the US, Curse of the Demon, made in 1958, starring Dana Andrews. He is the American among an entirely otherwise British cast who has come to England to discover what has happened to a colleague of his, and he ends up getting involved with a devil-worshipping cult. And if that sounds cheesy, it's really not. It's played straight. This is not a Hammer film from the late 60s or early 70s. It's a black and white film, tremendously atmospheric, with one of horror's most memorable villains. And it has two editions. One has some extra footage. It's always best to go with the longer of the two cuts in these instances, I feel. So, Curse or Night of the Demon at number 19. At number 18, another Karloff film, this one also rather on the obscure side, from 1935, The Black Room. Karloff plays twins. One is sympathetic, the other is pure evil. And there is a prophecy that the younger one will murder the older one. The younger twin will take the life of the older twin, and the family tree will be cut down right then and there. But it's the younger twin who is the decent one. He's the sympathetic one, and he doesn't want to do any harm. And the evil one wants to keep this prophecy from being fulfilled by basically taking his brother's place. So you have three different Karloff performances. His performance as the good twin, his performance as the evil twin, and then his performance as the evil twin pretending to be the good twin. And this is a Columbia horror film, so this is actually a period film. It's set in the 19th century, something that Universal, for some strange reason, never wanted to do. Maybe it was budget reasons, but they never wanted to make a period film, which I think is a shame. And so we get to see Karloff and cast in costume. So a movie after my own heart, with 3 times the Karloff if you are a Karloff fan, which I am. The Black Room comes in at number 18. Then at number 17, and I know I'm almost out of time, but I don't need a lot of time to talk about this one because it is 1931's Frankenstein. This is the movie that made Karloff a star, and there really isn't a lot that I can say about it that other people have not said already. Nothing I can say that I haven't said already in other videos, but you cannot really appreciate horror movie history unless you have seen this film. If you look at this and Dracula, one after the other, you can see that within the year 1931, there had already been tremendous strides in talkie filmmaking. So that clocks in at number 17, Frankenstein. So that is where I have to call a halt today. Thank you very much for listening, and please like and subscribe.